Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Bolo. We're gonna talk some old school hoops. This is another narrative that I want to dispel, another myth that I need to debunk, and that is when LeBron leaves, his teams just go into the trash. They just don't know how to operate. Well, there's this thing called context. When you look back in time and people just look at records, they go, wow, look at that. Look at his impact, which I will not dispute. Of course, LeBron James, all-time great, will have an impact. But we need to apply context. First off, LeBron isn't an idiot. If he leaves a team, do you think A, that team with him would have won a championship or would have been in a really good position to? Or B, they were on the downside and he felt like, I need to leave to greener pastures? I'll let you decide what the obvious answer is. So that's one. Number two, he leaves the team. He isn't traded. If he was traded, things would turn out a lot different. When you take away the player that the whole team is revolved around, it's like taking the sun out of the planetary system. Everything collapses. They're built with him specifically there to run it. So when you take that out, that's like taking out the car engine and not putting in a new engine and being like, wow, look at this car just can't run without that guy. Duh. Okay, so we're going to go into that, and we're also going to talk about the opposite, where they talk about Michael Jordan, and when he leaves, his teams do just fine. We're going to apply context to that as well, but let's get into the video.
When LeBron left all three of his teams, they never made the playoffs. When Jordan...
Okay, I know I have to stop it 5 seconds in, but obviously that's true. Cleveland, not the best team. I do feel they are underrated, and I will tell you why, because of specifically the Boston team, okay? When they played against Boston, right? They made it to game 7, lost against Boston, and this is the Boston team that won the championship, okay? Remember, he has no help. The team's trash. He's carrying everyone by himself, right? Let's look at the first 4 games of this Eastern Conference semifinals, I believe it was. Yes, semifinals. Game 1. Boston wins by 4. What's LeBron's numbers? 2 for 18. And you only lose by 4 on the road. Highly winnable game. Let's see game 2. LeBron James, 6 for 24. They lose by 15, but 6 for 24 means if he played just regular, his regular 50%-ish shooting percentage, they have a chance to win the game. Obviously, this one looks a little worse, but let's be honest. If he goes, instead of 6 for 24, he goes 12 or 13 for 24, they're in a position of winning that game. You don't know what happens in the final possessions, okay? Now let's look at game 3. Game 3, LeBron James goes 5 for 16. They win. Not only do they win, they have the biggest victory so far in the series. They win by 24 points with LeBron shooting 31%. Now, remember, the narrative is he's got a bunch of trash teammates that can't do anything and he needs to carry them at all times. Well, he shot 31% and they had a 24-point victory against the eventual champions. Let's be honest here. At worst, they should be up 2-1. Best case scenario, 3-1. 3-0. Now let's go to game 4. Cleveland wins again by 11. by 11. Let's see what his numbers are. He must have played well. This is the 4th game now, right? Nope. 7 for 20, and they win by 11. Let's be clear here. They should be up 3-1. 3-1, because their first game they lose by 4 points and he goes 2 for 18. They should be up 3-1. Remember, these are trash teammates, can't do anything. They can't figure out how to bounce a basketball without LeBron James. So this is why I say his teammates are often underestimated, because he played like absolute dog shit the first 4 games and they came out 2-2. Okay, that's one. Now we're going to talk about the Miami Heat. After he leaves Miami, they don't make the playoffs. Correct. 37-45. These guys, absolute garbage, right? But let's dig into the numbers a little bit more. Chris Bosh. Remember, the season is 82 games. Chris Bosh misses 38 games. Okay, he plays 44. Dwayne Wade plays 62. So they missed together almost 60 games total. Okay. Obviously, they're not going to make the playoffs when their 2 best players miss a pretty significant chunk of the season. But now let's look at the year after that. Let's look at the year after that, okay? 2015-2016, the Miami Heat do make it to the playoffs. And they make it to within 1 game of the Eastern Conference Finals without LeBron. Okay, people never want to look past that first initial year that was injury plagued. Chris Bosh, he goes back up to 19 points a game. Dwayne Wade's averaging 19 points a game. And look, they still missed not as much, but they still actually missed some games. But they were more available, which equals more wins. And check this out. They could have actually been playing the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. But let's look at the playoff series that they lost in Game 7. Chris Bosh didn't play this series at all. So Dwayne Wade by himself with all these people, that if this was LeBron James' team, they would have been like, oh, how could you expect him to even make it to the playoffs? Look at this. Joe Johnson, that's about it. Luol Deng, not really good at this point. He's, whatever. This is not a good team. Dwayne Wade got to a Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors without Chris Bosh. You just need the players to play. Okay? So I want to get that out the way. And then in Cleveland, we all know what happened. LeBron James tried to force a trade to get Kyrie out. He found out, demanded a trade. Now he's without Kyrie Irving. And it's just him and Kevin Love. He knows he's not going to win any championships with that, and he skates off. So now it's just Kevin Love by himself on an island. Of course, that team's going to be absolute dog shit. Let me ask you this, any LeBron fans. If LeBron was traded instead of left in free agency, do you think all of his teams would have done so poorly the next season? Obviously not. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Jordan. I don't care if it's Kobe. I don't care if it's Shaq. Even if you don't get equal value, but you get something close, you're going to be just fine. But he leaves. He doesn't get traded. If you would have traded, let's say, for James Harden, 2015 James Harden, for LeBron James, you think Miami's still, in the dumpster the next year? No, absolutely not. They're making the playoffs. They might make it to the finals over LeBron if you have Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh with James Harden. Okay? Now let's continue with the video. Sorry for taking so long, but all these things need to be spelled out because history needs to be preserved. People forget about the actual history and just look at numbers and rattle them off.
Jordan, his first year when he was playing baseball, the Bulls still made it to the conference semis.
Yeah.
I think they lost to the
Knicks
Knicks
beat
in
'em.
6 or 7.
Check it out. Jordan always played.
That's true. Scotty's in the middle of his prime. They added Tony Kukoc. It was a really good team. Point blank period. But let's talk about the year after that, right? Here's the year after. The 94-95, right? So this is the year that they did well. 55-27, lost in game 7. You know, it just didn't work out for them. But here's the season after, okay? Let me find it real quick. Sorry about that. Okay, so March 17th. This is the game that Jordan came back the year after. The Bulls were only 34-31. People don't want to talk about that. People want to act like the Bulls were just fine without Jordan. Jordan came back because the Bulls were playing like dumpster juice. And then there was that clip of Scottie Pippen pointing to the Jordans, begging him to come back. People often forget about that. Okay, so yeah, the first year after, they did fine. Like, they didn't replace Jordan, but they got some decent pieces to keep them afloat and competitive. Now, obviously, they didn't win, and they weren't gonna win. They had nowhere near the best team, but they were still a competitive team. Okay?
With not taking nothing from Michael Jordan. Of course, Pippen.
Obviously. Horace Grant, really good player, but people are trying to overvalue him and give him a lot of credit when he could have been easily... You could have put more than a handful of players in his place and gotten the same result, if not better, during that time. Okay, point blank period. Horace Grant was an above average player, but he was not this special, oh my God, without him, I don't know how the Bulls win, because they won 3 after he left. Okay. Fact of the matter is when Jordan wasn't with Scotty, he failed. When he had competitive teams, he failed. It's not like it was Jordan gone and a bunch of trash teammates. No, he had the same teammates that Jordan had, which everyone says were great teammates. And he did well the first year. The year after, not so much. Failed in the playoffs. Then went to Portland. Had a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. Could have really, actually made a strong argument that he was actually Jordan's equal, if not better, if he won in Portland, which he should have, but he blew it. People want to act like, oh, without Pippen, Jordan wouldn't have won anything. Look, Scottie Pippen, for as great as he was, okay, let's look at Scottie Pippen. Everyone wants to give this guy all the credit in the world. And this is just me putting things in perspective. I'm not here to downplay him, but let's be honest. 8 points a game as a rookie. 14, 16, 18, mind you, this 18 points a game, he didn't even make the All-Star team, and the Bulls won the championship. The Bulls had one All-Star during that first championship run, while Michael Jordan was the only All-Star. The Lakers had 2 All-Stars. People want to act like the Lakers were old and washed up. James Worthy and Magic Johnson were both All-Stars that year, and Magic Johnson was second in MVP voting and had a higher odds of winning the championship during the preseason that year. People want to rewrite history and act like, oh, well, you know, the Lakers were finished. No, the hell they weren't. No, the hell they weren't. It took Scotty 5 seasons to average 20 points a game. Imagine LeBron James' second teammate not averaging 20 points a game. People would have been calling for their heads. That's the truth. People would have been like, get this guy out of here. He needs more help. Okay?
Yeah, Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman, obviously.
Tony
Ron
Kukoc.
Harbaugh was nice.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, Phil Jackson.
Oh, that guy, Phil, yeah.
Hey, that's another one. This is a big one. Everyone wants to talk about LeBron James never had a good coach. This is the fact of the matter. LeBron James never wanted a good or great coach. He never wanted to be held accountable. He never wanted to be told what to do. I remember when he declined going to the Spurs because he didn't, low key, he didn't want to be under Greg Popovich. He didn't want to play in a system. He wants to be the system. He wants to be the one that makes every assist and every decision. He had, what's this guy? Why can't I remember the Miami Heat coach? Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra is now being looked at as a really, really great coach. An all-time great coach, in fact. For what he does with undermanned teams. LeBron tried to get him fired. Let's be clear. Phil Jackson and Eric Spoelstra were in the same boat. The difference is that Jordan believed in what was going to happen and let it play out. Okay? LeBron James, if he stayed in Miami, Eric Spoelstra could have had and probably would have had more rings if he would have allowed the process to play out. But he leaves before the great coach can prove that he was a great coach. Phil Jackson was nobody before he got to the Bulls. People act like he walked in with 10 rings and, man, no one knew Phil Jackson was going to be Phil Jackson. Nobody. So stop acting like, oh man, he had Phil Jackson on his team. Yeah, so what? LeBron had Tyronn Lue and Eric Spoelstra. The difference is that he left them for dead. He said, all right, I'm out of here. And then they turn out to be really good coaches. So good that he wanted to have him back on LA. So, like I said, there's a lot of context that needs to be put into these narratives. That's not to take anything away from LeBron. LeBron is a great player, and his loss when he leaves is going to be felt. Same thing with Jordan. But it's not, oh, look at the records. It's not that simple. Okay? But yeah, let me know what your thoughts in the comments below. I'm out.